Yeah. So, hi, if you are new to me, my name is Lauryn Juhl. I'm so excited to be here with Sarena. She's such a cool girl. We met through YouTube. So,
Mhm.
I am a YouTuber. I have a YouTube channel under my name. And I also am a stay-at-home wife and kind of a fitness enthusiast. I do fitness instructing. I teach spin classes. I actually taught one just this morning. And then I am really passionate about teaching people how to be healthy in a way that's like realistic and sustainable and not like I'm not big on like crash diets or anything crazy. I just want to help people learn healthy habits that are like doable in real life because,
Mhm.
sometimes healthy can feel so unattainable. So that's kind of my thing. I also, like I said, I'm a stay-at-home wife. So a lot of my community here on YouTube is women who stay at home or just have maybe don't have the traditional 9 to 5 job. Maybe they do something like they have their own business or something like
Mhm.
that, where a lot of times I think we feel as women a little bit misunderstood if you have a career or you choose a path that is different from the traditional, 9 to 5 career. And so really what my passion is in terms of like what I do here online is just helping women specifically feel less alone if they have that, if they're doing something different with their life than what is traditionally or normally kind of understood and valued, I guess, in our
Yeah.
society.
Yeah. So first of all, so many like twists and turns that I want to get into,
Yeah.
and we will. But one of the things, just because I've been married a while too, one of the things, and my husband is like the breadwinner, that kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, Other people, I don't know, let me know if you get this too. Like, oh, what do you do? You're like, oh, well, I do YouTube, or like back, I had a podcast for a while. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
like,
Like the conversation ends. Yeah.
have you
Yeah.
gotten that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I've tried to like play around with different ways of like answering that question because I don't ever quite know how to answer it. Like, I mean, I'm a fitness instructor, but I only do that part-time. I do YouTube, but that's kind of a part-time thing. Like, yeah, it is kind of funny. I'm like, kind of feel like I'm a little all over the place and people don't know how to pin me down, but
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and then you're in a season of life where you don't have any kids too.
Right.
And so then people are just really stumped. They're like, so what do you do all day? And you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Like, oh, I keep myself busy, believe me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my questions for you, because, I've been doing the same thing you're doing. Like, I'm at home and my husband's gone, but like, there's the temptation when you're at home all day because no one's watching you, no one's forcing you. And you seem like the person where you're like, you make your list, you do your things, you get stuff done, like, dun, 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 you know what I mean? So my question is like, what is your motivation to stay focused, or what is your motivation, like the temptation to just sit on the couch and watch Netflix, like no one's there. You could, if you really wanted, you could. Like, what are you telling yourself throughout the day?
Yeah. I know for me, I just know I feel so much better if I know at the end of the day that I've been productive. I feel better about myself. If I have a day where I'm lazy or I'm just kind of all over the place and don't really have a plan and don't get stuff done, at the end of the day, I don't feel good. And I end up not being like the best version of myself. I end up being like grumpy because I'm mad at myself and I'm not the best wife I'd like to be or the best friend I want to be and that kind of thing. So a lot of it honestly is kind of selfish of I know I'm going to feel better if I get some stuff done. And then also I still want my life to have meaning and have impact on other people. Even just because I stay at home doesn't mean that my life has to be this boring, mundane life. I want
Yeah.
to still do things that help other people. I mean, that's a big driving reason why I do what I do online is I want to be able to encourage other women and help people, even though I stay at home. I see it as a huge opportunity. I mean, I have all this time to pursue things that make me, allow me to really show up as my best self. And so I'm not going to waste that opportunity while I have it because I know it's a huge blessing. It's obviously not something that everybody has the ability to do. And I'm super grateful for it. And so I try to kind of think of that when the temptation comes to just sit around and not do anything or, indulge in the laziness, which, it's nice to do. Everybody's got to do that sometimes, but I try to kind of think about that when that temptation comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what, like, you keep circling back to the common theme of wanting to like help and empower other women.
Yeah.
And just you showing up on YouTube, like just you creating videos and putting yourself out there, like it's a lot more common than it was, but it's still like, it takes a special type of person.
Yeah.
like I feel like I get like in my DMs, people saying like, I want to start a YouTube channel, but I'm scared. I want to do this, but I'm afraid of people judging me. I want to do, like all of the buts. So like, can you talk to me about like your mindset behind starting your channel? And because it takes a certain level of confidence to be like, hey world, like I'm Lauryn, this is what I do, like to be able to sit in your own space and not like squirm,
Yeah.
So can you talk about that?
I mean, when you say that, people say like, I want to start a YouTube channel, but I'm scared. Oh, I was terrified. I was terrified when I started my channel, and I still get nervous sometimes, especially if I post like videos where I'm a little bit more vulnerable or I'm sharing things that like I don't share that often, or I feel, very like invasive or personal to me. Like I still get scared, and I still get scared to post about it on Instagram, where I have people who I know in real life who follow me, and I don't know what they think about what I'm doing.
Almost embarrassed. It's like,
oh. Yeah. Oh, I definitely still feel that. And it gets easier the more you do it, for sure. But that feeling is still there. And I've kind of just learned to kind of lean into that feeling a little bit, that feeling of nervousness or anxiety when you're about to do something really scary, because I know that those are the things that make me grow. I know that those are the things that are going to allow me to, like I said, have an impact on other people. And so when I start to feel that, instead of trying to run away from that feeling of being uncomfortable, I just lean into it and say, you know what, this is what I'm supposed to be feeling. Means that I'm growing. It means that I'm doing something that will hopefully help someone. And, it's not for everyone, obviously, but hopefully it'll help a few people. And if that does that, then I've done my job.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about confidence, and I'm going to ask like, what does that word mean to you? So you can marinate on that a minute.
Okay.
But on the topic of creating content and putting yourself out there in the world. So like, there's the analogy, like you can be the juiciest, ripest peach, but someone's still not going to like peaches.
Yes.
And it's like when you put yourself out there online and you start creating a certain type of content. I had this experience recently where someone reached out to me and they were like, hey, I really think it's annoying that you're constantly promoting your YouTube channel. And before I could like explain or like defend myself, she blocked me.
Oh my God.
And it's just kind of like when you choose to share your life online and when you choose to present yourself a certain way, like I positioned myself confidence, we're talking about confidence. This is for women. Like I'm not trying to talk to everybody. And if you go on social media or you go on YouTube with the intention of trying to please everybody, like that's not going to work. It's not going to be very effective. And with that, like, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. Like, I know, like, your content is not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like you just really want to show up and be there for the people that come to you and come into your world, right?
Right, for sure. And I mean, you basically said it. If you try to talk to everyone, you end up not really talking to anyone. And I think it can be scary for people hard for people who maybe are trying to delve into the world of social media to niche down a bit and be willing to kind of target their audience in a little bit smaller way, because it feels like you're excluding so many people. But in reality, you need to be like, there are people who are looking for specific things. And if you can answer that specific thing or solve that specific problem, that's going to be helpful. And no matter what you do, it's not going to be for everyone. So you kind of have to live with that. And I know for me, I had to kind of experiment and play around with ideas because I am a multifaceted person. We all are. And it's not like my being a stay-at-home wife is the only thing about me, but I've found in just putting myself out there and taking action and doing things that's really who's found me. And I've been able to kind of speak to those people. So I think I always say action breeds clarity. So if you don't know where to start, just take action. Just start talking to someone, anyone, and kind of see what sticks, because you might find that what ends up sticking, what ends up really catching people's attention or helping people isn't maybe what you initially thought would.
Mm-hmm. And then when you're choosing to share your life online or choosing to put a part of yourself online, you have to be okay with the potential of rejection or the potential of people not liking you. And that doesn't mean you're bad, and it doesn't mean what you're doing is bad, but it just means you're not for everybody.
Right.
You know? Yeah. Okay. So on that note, what does confidence mean to you? Like, what are the characteristics? What are the qualities of a confident woman specifically? When you see someone walking on the street, what things about them do you go, oh, she's confident?
Yeah. For me, a lot of confidence is just being okay with who you are, being okay with your own skin, and regardless of, like we talked about, what other people think or may say about you. And I think about like women who I think are really confident. My first person that comes to my mind is my mom, because she is just so unapologetically who she is, no matter who she's around. And she's the same person, no matter who she's talking to. She is who she is. She's not going to put on a front for anyone. She's going to be kind and respectful to everyone. I mean, my mom's an incredible person, but she's not going to fake it for anyone, because she's okay with who she is. And if they don't like her, she's okay with that, because she's really, I guess, found who she is. And I think for me, a lot of that like self-discovery has come from, like I talked about, taking action, trying different things, figuring out what makes you, what parts of, you do you really like to lean into when you're feeling not great about yourself. What are some things that you can look back on and say, well, I'm good at this. I know I like to do this. This is, part of who I am. And it kind of helps ground you when you're facing that negativity maybe, or facing rejection, to just be able to kind of lean back and say, okay, this is who I am. And I know this is true about me, or whatever, and be able to kind of have that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a specific moment or story where like that happened in your life where you can reflect on and be like, oh, wow, like that's the person that I'm made of, like from that experience? Like, do you have a story like that you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for one thing, I did back about 5-6 years ago now, I did a bikini competition, one of those like bodybuilding competitions. It was crazy. And I spent like over a year, like weighing every piece of food before I put it in my body. I mean, it was intense, and it ended up to be not at all what I thought at the time. It was what I would be doing with my life. I thought I would become a like fitness competitor professionally and be a fitness model and all that kind of thing. And at the end of the day, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And it ended up kind of leading me down a path of some disordered eating tendencies and things that I didn't like about myself. And so in a way, I think that gave me confidence now that I can look back on it and say like, wow, I really like poured myself into that and I did it. Yeah. But also at the same time, I think I had to spend some time afterwards really finding myself again, because while I could look back at that and say, wow, like how cool is it that I did that? I didn't really have that perspective right away, because I was so deep in like dealing with the fact that I had really wrapped up my whole identity in that one thing. And I think since then I've really learned how important it is to not wrap your identity up in one thing, but instead to kind of find multiple parts of yourself that you like, and do things that challenge you in multiple ways. And I think by doing that, after that, I knew I needed to challenge myself and to try some different things. I ended up doing a powerlifting competition. I know, right? I mean, look at me. I'm a small person. That obviously isn't like what I was built to do, but I did that. I put myself out there. I ended up like really pursuing my career at the time and getting promoted and doing all that kind of thing, and like fashion merchandising, that whole world. So doing some different things really helped me. And just anytime I pursue a goal that's really hard, like doing that powerlifting competition, or I run a couple half marathons, things like that, or going after some big promotion at work when I was working those things, while I didn't necessarily feel confident at the time in doing them because I was nervous and didn't feel like I belonged or felt like, what am I doing here? Now I can look back on that and say, I'm really proud of myself for going for it and for doing things that push me outside of my comfort zone. And it's kind of proved to me that I can set a goal and I can stick with it. And, I can hold my own in an environment where I don't exactly fit in, but, I can still do it. And so I think being able to look back on those things now really helps me when I'm feeling down on myself or feeling like I can't do something. I can look back now and say, well, I did it, when I did this, and this, I was able to stick it out and do it till the end. And whether or not it turned out the way I anticipated, I can at least say, I'm someone who sticks it out. I'm someone who works hard, and I can kind of have those things to tell myself when I'm not feeling good,
Almost like affirmations.
Yeah.
Do you have like affirmations that you do daily, or is that you just kind of have those in your mindset?
Yeah. I don't know that I have I don't have like specific things that I tell myself every day, but I definitely talk to myself a lot, like in my head, reminding myself of those things. I think it's so important. I think, like I said, I think it's important to do things that push you out of your comfort zone. It's kind of a paradigm, but to make you confident. It doesn't sound like it would, because it's things that make you less confident. But on the flip side, it's also important to be able to talk yourself through that. And, if it doesn't go as planned, or if, or when it does, whatever, you need to be able to have those things to lean back on and tell yourself, okay, I'm nervous about this thing, but I know I'm going to get through this, and I know it's going to make me stronger. I know when I'm feeling these nervous feelings, I know it's a good thing because I know it's making me better. I know, all of those things that are definitely things I tell myself. I mean, even doing a live stream, I'm like, I'm getting nervous, and I'm like, you know what? No, Lauren, that's a good thing, because that means you're pushing yourself. That means you're making yourself better. And so I do talk to myself about, or in that way, a lot.
Yeah. Well, so a little bit of my background. My husband, when we first got married, he worked at a supplement shop. And so he was very, not necessarily in like the bodybuilding world, but like he was it was centered around a lot of his life, therefore my life. And I like toyed with the idea of like, oh, should I do a bikini competition? Cause if you're working out, going to the gym, like it's just around and you see it and it's a fun thing that looks cool. I didn't, but I totally recognize that the girls who do, or whoever does compete in like competitions like that, bodybuilding and powerlifting and bikini, like that is so much dedication. And like what you were saying, I would see people like weighing their food with scales. And I've heard, I mean, again, it's not my experience, so I don't know, but I've heard, going through those types of competitions can really alter like how you see yourself and like your relationship with yourself and how you view food. And like what you were mentioning a little bit about like disordered eating tendencies, like all those like types of things. So backpedaling a little bit, you kind of just jumped in. And what I love about you, is you're action oriented. And so you're saying, I do this and I did this and I did this, which is great, because a lot of people think about doing this and this and this. But like, just when you're speaking, you're like, I have done, and that's beautiful. Like, I want to take note from that. Just backpedaling up until the first bikini competition, when you were through, your relationship with yourself and how you were speaking to yourself and your confidence at that point, what was that like? Like, was it a season of rebuilding or getting back to okay with yourself? Or were you maintaining a good like relationship with yourself? Where were you there?
Yeah, I was a mess there, if I'm going to be real honest. I mean, after I finished that competition that I did, I just did one. I remember that night I went and I ate like way more food than I would like to admit. I mean, which I kind of anticipated that I would, but it was like, I felt horrible. I felt absolutely horrible. Like you feel after, Thanksgiving dinner, and then I broke down. I mean, I like completely broke down. I felt so lost. I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore because, like I said, I really had wrapped my entire identity in who I was up in that one thing. And I had kind of allowed it to overtake my life to a point where I had kind of allowed myself I kind of distanced myself from some of my best friends, some of the people I was closest to, because you kind of almost have to be a little bit selfish to do that. And that's not necessarily entirely a bad thing. I'm not like trying to rail on doing fitness competitions because it's a great goal to have if that's something you want to do. But for me, I really isolated myself a lot in doing it because it was so hard. And I felt very alone afterwards. I felt very lost. I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore because I really had kind of felt like that was where I was going with my life. And now I'm like, I'm going to figure out, what am I going to do now? I was working kind of a like entry level job that I wasn't super happy in. And so I didn't really feel like I had anything else to offer. And so it was really hard for me to kind of sit in that. And there were times when, it took me a while, honestly, to kind of get out of that and to figure out what I wanted to do next. And it took a lot of trying different things, like I've talked about. And I don't know, I am a very action-oriented person. I guess that's how I cope. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes I do struggle to kind of sit in the negative emotions and allow myself to feel those things and work through those things, because I'm like, I don't want to feel this. I'm just going to try something else. So I've had to learn over time, and I'm still learning, to allow myself to feel those things, and that's okay to feel negative feelings, because if you don't let yourself feel that, I mean, how are you ever going to appreciate the good, if you never allow yourself to feel the bad and work through it and come out ahead. So yeah, it did take me a while to kind of get over that. I was, eating entire boxes of crackers, like in my room, hiding, and like,
I love the visual.
Proud of, like, and things that, like, why do you even do that? It wasn't even good. I just ate it because I was hungry and I was lost and I didn't know what I was doing. And I had a horrible relationship with my body. I mean, I thought I was like, I don't know. I was tiny. I was so, I look back on those pictures and I like look like I'm sick. But at the time I was like, felt like nothing was right about me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's funny how when you're in the moment, you can be so hard on yourself. And then I look back on like little Lauryn from 6 years ago. I'm like, chill out, sister. Like you were doing fine. Like you just had to work through some things,
I think, and as you were talking, I forgot that you had mentioned before that you're Enneagram 7.
Yeah.
Because I'm Enneagram 7 too. And for anyone who's watching or listening, Enneagram 7, one of the traits is fun-loving, adventurous, but also one of the major downfalls is does not like to sit in pain.
Yes, I feel that.
I can relate to that too. So as you were talking, I was like, oh, that's there it is.
Yep.
And it's definitely something like I'm working through myself, but it's funny when we reflect on ourselves and our personalities and like how that translated into our lives. Like, oh yeah, that's what that was. Oh, okay. I'm working on it. I see you.
Yeah.
But I think like your experience of not necessarily specifically going through a bikini competition, because that's not super relatable.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have gone through that. But I think what emotions you felt after the fact, I think that's really relatable to a lot of people and what they might be experiencing now.
Right.
With quarantine, with the isolation, a lot of people have been more alone than ever. And so I feel like people, because I took little notes as you were speaking, and you mentioned like you felt isolated, alone, lost, kind of asking yourself, well, now what? Like, what do I have to offer the world? And I feel like just that emotion, feeling in that place that's really common in our 20s, especially, like, because it's kind of the in between. Some people are often married, some people are living with 3 roommates. Like, so it's a lot of different dynamics. So if someone's listening or someone's watching and they're in that place that you were 6 years ago emotionally now, what encouragement or what advice or what's the first step? What should they do, or what would you say to them right now?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you're definitely not alone. Everyone feels that way and at times, and for some reason, we don't want to talk about it. I think sometimes we feel ashamed to feel alone or to feel like, we should have more friends, or what's wrong with me? Why don't why don't I have anyone to talk to? Or it feels very, yeah, like you feel like you can't talk about it, or that you're ashamed of it. And it's a normal part of life. I think everyone goes through it at some point or another. You get out of high school or college and you drift apart from those friends maybe, and you're in this weird, like you said, a weird in-between time where maybe you haven't really established that next season of life yet. And so it is very normal to feel that way. First of all, so don't feel like you should be ashamed of that, or that there's something wrong with you, or that you must be someone who's not likable or anything like that. That's not true. But I would say, see if you can reach out to some people if you're feeling like you're alone, and you kind of have to take action and do some things to reach out to people. It is so much harder to build and keep friendships as an adult, because we all have our own lives and get busy, and we're not like in school with the same person every day, or, we're not at the same place with people every day, unless you happen to work with someone who becomes your friend, which is great. But you kind of have to make more of an effort. One thing that I've started to do with some of my friends is establish like weekly or monthly like gets-togethers. Like I have a friend that I run with almost every week, and it allows us to get our workout in, which is nice, but then we also get to catch up every week. And so kind of starting to put some things like that into place can be really helpful. So you at least have one, thing on your calendar every week or every month or whatever it may be, to make you feel like you have some things going on if you're feeling like really alone. And, depending on what it is that you're struggling with, I think sometimes it's helpful. I know for me, like when I was really struggling with my relationship with food and with my body, sometimes you just have to like get yourself out of that completely and like do something that's completely unrelated to whatever that thing is that's really tripping you up, and just allow yourself to kind of like find another side of yourself and experience some fun things that don't have you in that like negative space.
Yeah. So I love that advice. Like, first of all, it's scary putting yourself out there and maintaining friendships or making new friendships. Like, it's scary as an adult, because you could get rejected. Like, what if they say no? What if they're too busy? Like, it's scary to put yourself out there. And like a theme from a book that I read earlier this year was cast your net, which basically means like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If someone seems really cool on Instagram or whatever, reach out, but then reach out to a couple other people, because you never know what season of life someone else is in. Yeah. So cast your net, like, try to befriend or reach out to a few people and just see what happens, because like, you never know the potential of a friendship. Right. I feel like God brings people in and out of your life in different seasons, and like people who become your very best friends. Like some of the people for me personally, like I would have never expected them to become so close. And then sometimes they leave and it's sad, but it's like, well, thank you for your lessons. Thank you for like the life we've lived together. So like with friendship as an adult, like, don't be afraid to cast your net. Like, just like what you're saying, we're circling back to the action. A lot of this action, just take the action and cast your net and see what'll happen if you just reach out. Like, hey, do you want to go on a run together? Like, you never know. Another theme that I'm kind of picking up on, something that I've been learning about this year, is having the tricky balance between having compassion with yourself and a compassionate inner voice, but at the same time, in the same breath, being ambitious and goal-oriented. And it sounds like either you're in that or have been in that or are like currently experiencing that, like you're motivated and you have goals and you have focus, but also being able to have compassion and grace for yourself.
Mhm.
Can you walk with me where you are at right now with that, or things you have
Yeah.
done for that?
Oh gosh, that's such a hard balance. It really is. I think it really ebbs and flows for me. Like I'll go through seasons where I'm better at one of those two things and then seasons where I'm better at the other. And I think that's okay for that to be the case. I mean, you'll have seasons where you're really working hard on something maybe and that action side of things is more prevalent for you. And then there's seasons where you need to take a step back and be a little kinder to yourself. And it's hard to kind of find those two things simultaneously. It can be really hard. And
Mhm.
I think for me, my husband is really helpful for me in that regard because he'll sometimes tell me like, Lauryn, you need to just take a break, take a step back, sit on the couch and watch TV or whatever. Because I'm not naturally super good at that side of things. I tend to be pretty hard on myself. And
Mhm.
I mean, as you can tell from our conversation, I'm very action oriented and I like to be, doing things and feeling like I'm being productive and bettering myself and all the things. And sometimes I do need to take a step back and be a little, kinder to myself, relax a little bit. And a lot of times that actually does help me in the things that I'm doing and help me be better at those things, which, may not, it's another one of those paradigms that it doesn't sound like it would be the case, but it is. Oh, so how is that working for me right now? I don't know. I'm not really answering your question.
No, you're good.
Um,
I asked you to walk with me where you're at. That's where
yeah,
you're
yeah.
at.
So, I mean, right now I feel like I've found a pretty good balance with like what I'm doing with my YouTube channel and with my fitness instructing, which I do like very part-time. And I feel pretty good about that because I think I've been able to limit it to where I'm not like working too terribly hard to where I don't have time to do the things that are important to me.
Mhm.
But I still am working at something and getting something done in my days and all that. But I think from week to week that varies. And there are weeks when I'm a little bit like more relaxed and a little kinder to myself. And then there are weeks when I'm like on a roll and I'm really hard on myself for not doing things. And even just yesterday, I was filming something and I didn't get nearly as much of it done as I wanted to. And I was so frustrated with myself. And I kind of had to talk myself out of it and say, you know what, Lauryn, like look back and really list off what you did get done today. Because I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit for the things that we do. And so I'm like, okay, I got this, and this done. Like, that's not so bad, So I've had to learn how to like, yeah, give myself more credit for the things that I do because it can be hard sometimes. You feel like the things that you do are really not that important or not that special, but you got
Mhm.
them done and you should feel good about that. And also, like, you have value as a human being, regardless of what you do. Like, you as a human are not what you do. I mean, that's a big part of who you are, maybe, but
Mhm.
you're just as valuable and important whether you spent the day getting a lot of stuff done or being productive or whether you spent the day relaxing and doing things that just made you happy. You're still just as valuable and yeah, you're still just as valuable regardless.
Mhm. I feel like I'm in the season of kind of almost like, it's going to sound kind of weird when I say it, but kind of like watching myself to see what I'm saying to myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and before I just, because everyone, there's that quote, it's like, speak to yourself as if you're speaking to a friend. And you're like, yeah, 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 okay, whatever. Like,
Right.
but when you actually kind of like listen in into what are you saying to yourself when you don't get through your to-do list? What are you
Mhm.
saying when maybe you don't reach that goal? What are you saying when, when things don't go the way, because it's like being an ambitious woman is a great and beautiful thing, but at the same time, you need to walk it with balance, or at least I
Yeah.
find that for myself. And if we're constantly like, Gary V, hustle, 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 hustle,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great to hustle. But if you're constantly hustling, like at what point are you just kind of like driving yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
And you brought up a great point saying like when your husband notices like, hey, you know, tone it down.
Yeah.
Like when you pull back from like da 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 do go go go, and then you do something else, and then you come back, you can come back refreshed and with a different perspective. And like kind of the idea of when you're like, at what point when you're working on your thing, are you like so energy depleted that you're like, what you're doing, like the quality isn't that good anymore because you're mad or you're frustrated or you're uninspired. Like we have to take the time to, what you're saying, go out and do other things and clear our mind for a minute. Like what are some things that you do, like some tangibles to, I'm assuming one might be exercise. What are some things that you tangibly do to kind of restart or clear your mind?
Yeah. So yes, you're right. One of mine is definitely exercise, but some other things, I have 2 dogs and they definitely make me slow down. One of my dogs is very lazy and loves to just lay around. And I love just like sitting down on the couch with them and just like kind of falling into that vortex of just being comfy and relaxing. And that is really nice. I also love going to little coffee shops and either working from a coffee shop or just sitting and enjoying. That feels really good for me. I did about a year ago or so, I did a little like thing for a week or so where I wrote down every day, like what was the highlight of my day? What was the thing that made me the happiest? And I found over time kind of some recurrent themes. And it was like taking my dogs to the dog park, going to a coffee shop, like getting coffee with a friend. It was like kind of the same few things every day that were the highlight of my day, the things that made me really happy. And so I kind of try to fall back onto those things when I'm like, I don't know what to do, you know? I fall back on those things on days when I need to take a break and I need to do something that's just going to kind of fill up my cup a little bit. And yeah, so it's usually trying a little restaurant or going to a coffee shop or hanging out with my dogs. Those are kind of my things.
I love that. I've been trying to get into the fall spirit, you know, like fall, October. And so like, yes, I'll work throughout the day, but then like kind of in the back of my mind, I'll think like, well, what do I want to do today? What's a project that I want to start or something I want to create? And it looks totally different from like the content that I create. Like I made these like pumpkin muffins the other day and it was so fun.
Aww, yeah. My friend was just telling me she was making pumpkin muffins. I feel like this is my sign that I need to make pumpkin muffins.
And it was just like, it's having something that pulls you out of your daily and pulls you out of the headspace that you normally are. And you can kind of just like give yourself permission to do that thing for a while.
Yeah.
And then once you've done it, you're like, okay, like, and then you can come back to whatever you're doing more refreshed or happier, or, you know, at least you have a muffin. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, I think it's so important for whoever's listening or watching later on, like, what are the things that make you happy? Like, what are just having maybe a list? Like, I love that you took the time to write down, like, what was it? And then you look back, you reflected. That's the important thing about personal growth. You have to reflect. You reflected, okay, what is the list of things that make me happy, that fill my cup? And you said like going to coffee shops, going to the dog park, meeting with my friend, like knowing what it is for you, because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Like my husband, he really likes cooking and I like baking.
Yeah.
But cooking kind of stresses me out a little bit.
That's cute.
And so understanding what your list is and understanding what things on your list do it for you, because everyone's different in that way. And so I love that you took the time to like, okay, here's my list. Like, here's what we got is what we need. This is my little like today.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. I just have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Let's see. So we did that one. Okay. So do you have, I know we kind of mentioned, like we talked about personal growth interweaved throughout this interview. And like, do you have certain routines or habits that you like, no, we do this every day? Like, are there certain things for you, or are you more relaxed in that approach? Like, where are you at with that?
Yeah, I would say I'm a little bit more relaxed. I have a morning routine, but most of my morning routine is really around like uh keeping my house clean because I am at home most of the time and I like to have a place that's like tidy and not, distracting me and that kind of thing. And then the evening I like to do a little bit of reading of a lot of times like a personal growth type of book.
Mhm.
But then other than that, I kind of go with the flow a little bit and I see how I'm feeling every day and kind of check in with myself a little bit. I love listening to good podcasts that are uplifting and encouraging. I mean, I was listening to one like before we got on this live stream because I knew I needed like some good things to fill me up, And so a lot of times, like if I'm getting ready for something like this, or if I'm on my way to teach a spin class, I will turn on something positive that gets me in a good headspace. But yeah, I do it kind of a little bit more like relaxed and I try to like listen to something good every day and get some good in my head every single day. I also am really careful about like who I follow on social media so that I'm
Mhm.
getting like good, positive things that make me feel good and uplift me and challenge me through what I'm seeing online instead of things that like don't make me feel good or make me, insecure or compare myself to other people or whatever. So I try to be really careful about that too, so that I'm just always whatever I'm turning to. If I'm turning to my phone, if I'm turning, wherever, that I'm always getting something positive and something that's going to like help me be a better person instead of like take me to a more negative place.
So when you wake up in the morning, like walk me through what's the first thing you do? Like, because you said
Yeah.
you kind of have your same things that you do each day, but they kind of vary a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
what's like a typical morning for Lauryn?
Typical morning, the first thing I do is I make coffee, and my husband and I are kind of coffee snobs. So we get like specialty coffee, make it in a French press, the whole thing. So that's my like morning ritual. I'm not a morning person. It takes me a while to wake up. So I usually will like sit on the couch with my dogs and sip on my coffee for a little bit, like to kind of allow myself to wake up slowly. And that just feels really good for me. I'm not like, I don't know, jumping right into like rolling out of bed and jumping straight into a workout or jumping straight into like reading something. I would fall asleep if I tried to read first thing in the morning. So for me, I need a little bit of time to wake up. And so does my husband. So we've learned that we kind of need to not try to talk to each other too much in the morning. We kind of need to do our own thing. And yeah, it's better for our marriage that way. So yeah, I wake up a little slowly and then I usually just start the morning by like emptying the dishwasher, starting my robot vacuum, starting a load of laundry, that kind of thing, just to get kind of ahead of the day in terms of those little tasks. So I have the rest of the day to do whatever it is that I want to do that day, create a YouTube video or, post on Instagram or whatever it is that I'm, kind of on my to-do list today. I have the little mundane stuff out of the way. So then I don't have to have that like looming over me all day long. So that's kind of what I like to do in the morning.
Yeah, I found that like in seasons where I'm struggling more, it can seem like when I write out my little to-do list, like it can seem like the mundane things or like there's so much opposition to get those
Yeah.
done sometimes. Like you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't want to do the dishes right now. Or like,
Right.
that type of, but it's like the days that I do and the days that I get it done early, I feel great.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's funny because it's when you're kind of in a headspace or an emotional space when it's like the smallest things just seem so hard. Like it's like, oh, I just don't want to do this. When you finally do, and like if you spend your morning, and no shame to anyone who's listening or watching and you didn't do this, like no shame, there's always tomorrow. But like if you spend your morning and you get your things done and then you get ready and like you're ready for the day.
Yeah.
So after you've done what you need to do, now you have it's giving yourself freedom, and like, so now you have the freedom to go and do this or go and do that. If someone texts you, hey, you want to hang out, like you're available to do that. The sooner you get done with your responsibilities or like your more mundane tasks, like you're free, you can do more.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And like for my experience, like it doesn't feel good when something's just hanging over you. I remember when I was a new wife, one time I was like home alone all day and my husband was getting home like 5 o'clock, and I looked around, it was 4:30 and I was like, oh crap, I haven't done anything today.
Yeah.
And I was like, trying to clean, trying to do all the things. And it's like, if we had just done the things we needed to do, and of course, there's different days, there's different seasons. But yeah, I've experienced that too. Like just get it out of the way and then you're free and you have the flexibility to do whatever you want later.
Right.
Like that's such a blessing. So on that topic, you mentioned your routine, you mentioned books, then you mentioned podcasts. So I want a few like specifics. So 3 favorite books and 3 favorite podcasts right now.
Okay. Favorite books, I would say right now, I just finished 𝐬𝐭 𝐂𝐵𝐿𝐼NC's Discipline Equals Freedom. It's a super quick, easy read, but it's really good. And it's like if you need a kick in the pants, that's the book to read because he's a Marine and like he definitely speaks like you would expect a Marine to speak. But it's a really good one. The other one I really love is Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. That's definitely another favorite of mine and one that a lot of the things she talks about in that book are things that I refer back to a lot. And then the third is A Tribe Called Bliss by Lori Harder, which actually she'll be one of my podcast faves too. I adore her and her husband. They're both entrepreneurs, which my husband and I both are a bit entrepreneurial too. So they do a podcast where they each have their own podcast, but then they talk or they get on each other's podcast once in a while. And it's nice to like hear their back and forth and kind of, I learn a lot just from hearing them. They're very candid and will like work through problems on their podcast. And it's really helpful to hear that and like hear how they work through things and how they express to each other what they need. And that's been really, really helpful for both my husband and I to listen to. We both listen to it usually together. And it's really nice to just hear from a couple who's kind of like a couple steps ahead of where we are and just see that side of them. So her book, like I said, is A Tribe Called Bliss. It's all about creating community as a woman. It's a lot about what we talked about with like combating that feeling of loneliness and stuff. And it's really, really good. And then her podcast is amazing too. So, and then other podcasts I listened to Payday with Ray Ray.
Okay, I heard of that one.
Yeah. I just found her. One of my friends like recommended her podcast on Instagram. I'm like, I have to look this up. And she's like a super powerful boss babe kind of girl. And yeah, so her podcast is really good. And then I like listening to like Joe Rogan and people like that too. I think it's interesting. People who are kind of like in that intellectual dark web, they call it, who are having like very open, long form, candid conversations with people who believe like all sorts of different things. Cause it's nice. I feel like in the world today, so much of like what we see is so divisive and like in the media, you see like little sound bites of one like 10-second blurb of what someone said and you don't get to hear them fully flesh out their ideas.
Yeah, whoa.
Yeah. So I like listening to stuff like that, like Joe Rogan's podcast, which I mean, he has a whole variety of different guests, but it's just nice to people to actually like let people talk and hear them completely flesh out their ideas and understand where people are coming from who maybe think like way differently than you do. And you may walk away still disagreeing with them, but at least you have a little better understanding, maybe a little bit more compassion for and respect maybe for people who think differently than you, because I think that's really important in a world that can be so divisive sometimes.
Yeah. We need more space for just allowing other opinions.
Yeah.
Because not everyone you meet's going to agree with you.
Right. Yeah, but they're not all bad people just because they disagree with you. Yeah,
and it's funny because with social media, I feel like sometimes like I'll buckle in for a podcast, I'm listening, I'm like, okay, we're on this ride, and then sometimes like certain guests come on, I'm like, whoa, I don't know where we're going with it.
Yeah.
It's like because there's so many different opinions, but it doesn't mean you need to automatically like tune them out. Like just because they may not be for you and their message is not for you, like
Right.
what is it inside of here that you can learn? Like, what is it within this interview, or what is it within like what they're saying is true for you? Like, pull what you like, what's true, what you like, okay, yeah, I resonate with that. And then like discard what's not. Like,
Yeah.
they're not trying to brainwash you. Like, you're fine.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, pull in what is valuable for you and then discard or leave whatever it is not jiving with you in your life.
Yeah.
The last thing you kind of mentioned was like, you're very picky and you're very particular about who you follow on social media. And I am like, I'm all about that. I talked about that in so many YouTube videos. Like, I always say, like, either unfollow or mute people, because I was walking in Santa Monica with my friend and I was talking about social media. I was like, there's just too many voices. There's too many voices in my head. And this like this homeless woman right by, she's like, me too, sister.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like,
That is so funny.
but for you, when you're looking at the content that's coming in your life and the content you're consuming, whether book, Instagram, podcast, what are your filters to making sure you're following good people?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, for one thing, I try to separate, like, if I choose to unfollow someone or I choose to mute them even or whatever, that doesn't mean that, like, I think that they're a bad person, or it doesn't mean that I don't like them or that there's anything wrong with them. It's just sometimes it's that there's something about them that makes me feel insecure. And like, they're an awesome person and they're sharing amazing content and they're helping so many people, but it's just something about it feels like hits me wrong and makes me like look at a part of myself that I don't like and I'm maybe not ready to deal with yet or whatever. So sometimes it's that kind of thing. And then I just try to find people who are talking about positive things and choosing to be positive, and not in a way that's like, it's okay to share if you're having a hard day, or it's okay to share like hard things, but people who try to kind of have perspective, have a understanding that, you know, we'll get through this too, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess that's what I kind of try to look for. And I try to look for, you know, people who inspire me and who make me want to be better when I watch their stories or when I see their posts. Is it something that like makes me feel like, you know, I could feel empowered, like I could do that too, or feel like, you know, wow, what an incredible thing that she's doing. That's so inspiring, you know, that kind of thing. Without it being something that causes me to compare myself to her or whatever it is.
I think you have to be really like emotionally aware of like so when you consume someone else's content, how did that make me feel? What did I do in response to that? Like, what emotions came up for me? A lot of like, I went from earlier this year, I think I followed I was following like 2,000 people. And then I bumped all the way down to 250 people. Like, and I felt mean, but at the same time, like what you're saying, like, it's not you, it's me. It's me. Like some of the people, like I love them and I love their content. And I love, like, if I saw them at coffee, I'd be excited, you know, but it's like, you're responsible for how you feel and how you show up in the world and the energy that you have. And if you watch someone else's story and they're a great person, they're awesome. But if as a result, you felt bad about yourself and then you kind of got in a spiral down, like, it's not them, it's you. And having the emotional intelligence to go, okay, maybe it's best for me right now to pull back a little bit so I can do more with my time on this earth. So I can do more with like the short time span that I have the potential and capability to do things right now, you know? And so it's a hard thing because it's like, it's not personal to clean out your feed or to be intentional with who you follow, but it is important to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I love what you said about like, how did I feel afterwards after seeing their content? What did I do afterwards? That's a good way to look at it. I like that.
Well, it's like, we're responsible for us and no one else, you know? Like, So we better we better be in check with how we're doing and how we're feeling.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like this interview has like done all of the twisty turvy, topsy windy. I didn't even know we were going to get into like fitness and bikini competitions. I didn't even know where we were going.
Threw that one at you. Sorry.
But we buckled up. I tried to do my research and stock ahead of time, but I didn't find that one.
That's funny.
So I guess for anybody who's like listening or watching the playback or whatever, if they like really jived with you and jived with your message, like what like final word of encouragement or like motivation with like what tidbit would you give to them? Like the little hoorah to keep going.
Oh, man, the pressure's on. No, I would just, for one thing, I want to let you know you're not alone. You know, we talked about feeling lonely or maybe having a path in life that isn't what is normally traditionally understood or that kind of thing. And I want you to know you're not alone and that there are people out there like you. And yeah, it can be sometimes hard to find them or to feel heard and understood, but we're here. I mean, Sarena and I are here if you feel like you relate to us, but you know, and I think a lot of it is just comes from putting yourself out there in whatever way that means for you, you know, trying new things or what have you, to kind of find some people that make you feel alone or feel not alone and feel like like you can really be who you are. And a lot of times finding those people really helps you kind of find who you are because they pull out parts of you that you like and that make you feel better about yourself and that make you feel more confident, like we talked about. So yeah, I think that's probably the final word I would leave. Thank you so much for having me on here. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like we buckled up and we like throughout this conversation, we've talked about like productivity, mindfulness with yourself, confidence, relationship with yourself, your body, like, and how we interact in friendships and how to be careful with like the content we take in and like how we can better gauge and like operate in the world. So I feel like we just dove into all the things.
Yeah.
If there's anyone that's like catching up now or listening later and they're like, yo, like, I feel like I understand Lauryn or I have like lived part of her life. Where would you direct them? Like, is there a specific YouTube video or like maybe to hang out with us when I'm on your channel later this week or on Instagram? Like, shout yourself out.
Okay. Yeah. So this Friday, I will have Sarena on my channel. Sarena, I'm nodded the wrong way. Anyway, so we would love to have you there. I'm going to get to interview you and find out a little bit more about your life. But yeah, I'm super active on both YouTube and Instagram. So that would be where to find me. It's all under my name, Lauryn Juhl. So that would be where you can get connected with me. Either shoot me a DM on Instagram or comment on my YouTube videos. I see all those. So I love to connect with you guys and I would love to see you in other places if you felt like this resonated with you.
Yeah. And then we have my friend Anu in the comments. She's like, I'm going to definitely watch the replay. Yeah. And then we have my other friend Liz saying hello and like that she had fun watching too. So
good.
Liz and Anu, I just wanted to give you a quick shout out. Say hello. But other than that, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for just coming on. And it's always kind of scary when you're being interviewed because you never know, like, what are they going to ask?
Yeah.
You know? So thank you for being brave and just showing up as yourself and being honest, like, hey, this is me. This is where I've been. I know it takes courage and confidence to a certain degree to be able to do that, especially live.
Yeah.
Live makes people nervous too. Right. So thank you, Lauryn, for showing up in your you.
Aw, well, thank you so much, Sarena.
Yeah.
I'll see you again on Friday on my channel.
Okay, everybody, hang out with us on Friday. Sound good? Sound good. Okay. Bye, Lauryn.
Bye.